Okay, my name is Howard Ebert. I am an alcoholic, and Kathy and I are very proud to introduce you to our friend. The Big Book Comes Alive Deep Dive is happy to present from Louisville, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Howard. Hey, everybody. My name is Elizabeth. I am an alcoholic, and today we're on page 87. So first I'm going to read the paragraph, and then I'll talk about it. It's the first full paragraph. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will, and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. So yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about selfishness, self-centeredness, self-will, self-reliance, why it doesn't work throughout the book. And 4 through 9 was our initial attempt to clear some of that baggage, to learn how to do it. And then 10 was to continue to watch for that character that wants to show up and run my life and be self-reliant and be an ego. I have to shine a spotlight on that because it exists in the subconscious mind and it's constantly wanting to run the show. So every day I wake up with that thing. So we had just talked about upon awakening, and we consider our plans for the day, our 24 hours ahead, just that much. Sometimes I'll have a little rough outline, but I'll really only think about the next hour. Like, okay, like I have a little outline and then just that next hour. But I really like how it says we usually conclude this period of meditation. I don't just have one period of meditation, but I don't have one long one either. I get quiet. I have to get quiet throughout the day, especially right now. I'm going through a big transition in my life, a painful one. And so there's a lot of anxiety involved. There was actually right just in the hours before this meeting. So that was nice. I get to shift gears really quickly and be here and show up for AA and dive into service, which is one of the amazing tools that we get to have to show up for recovery and be in recovery, active in recovery. But I'm constantly doing this all day now. It says shown throughout all through the day. I'm constantly turning to God. I mean, earlier today, I was saying the third step prayer just over and over and over and over to get the other thoughts that I was having out of my mind. And I find that when I do that, I really practice this stuff today. Some of you may have heard me say before that I'm 37 years sober. And I find that when I don't use these tools, it's more painful than it even was in earlier sobriety. Like it's so painful now for me not to use the tools. And I turn to God and I'm constantly saying, okay, what next, God? What's next? How can I show up today? What can I do that's helpful, loving, kind, all the good principles that we talk about, the ideals that we talk about, or virtues, or whatever you want to call them. And I have to continue to watch for that self-will. And I love how they use the word freedom. When I'm not in self, being in self, I love the word the bondage of self, right? What is that on page, I forget, it's between 60 and 63. It does feel like bondage, and it sounds like, Howard didn't call me the other day. Wait, that's not true, by the way. I always use these examples. None of them are true. Rob was frowning at me earlier. I think he doesn't really like me. I walk around thinking about myself and how the world isn't going the way I want it to. And it's literally painful. And the longer I'm sober, the more painful it is because I don't have alcohol to use to numb these feelings. So, but here they're talking about freedom. I have found I'm having a new experience in the past 5 years. When I got on Zoom and I found a group that focuses on my alcoholism as it shows up today. What does it look like today? Where is it? I have a whole story about grocery bags, if anyone's heard me talk about it. I haven't talked about it here, have I, Howard? No, I used to go to the grocery store and see, I care about the environment. So I bring all these reusable shopping bags, right? But here in Kentucky, they don't have any rules about plastic, the little plastic little bags that they use. So they would fill my shopping bags like halfway full and then start pulling out the plastic. And my chest would get tight. I would feel it. I'm like, what are they doing? and no, you can fill that bag up more. And I would get involved in like helping them, helping them managing this process. And I'm not kidding you. Okay. This Louisville's kind of small and I'm always at the same little store. And it got to the point that when they saw me coming, they walked away. They didn't want to deal with me. And you know what I thought? Good. I do a better job than they do anyway. So one day, my former partner says to me, Elizabeth, um, I really don't even like to go to the store with you anymore. This is really awful. And I felt it too. And, I was starting to dread that every day. I would come to the end of the shopping trip and I'm like, this sucks. It really feels bad. I'm trying to manage it. It's not working. Even if I offer to say, oh, I'll do the bagging, it's okay. They'd still give you a dirty look, right? That you're making them feel small and it doesn't work. So I'm going to these meetings where there's people with decades of sobriety talking about how their brain works. And it hit me one day, oh my God, this is what they're talking about. They use this term called untreated alcoholism. And I'd never heard that before. I knew something was missing and I didn't know what it was. Because I still felt tension and anxiety and depression. And, I'd get that just really feeling, like you all aren't doing what I want. And it's really irritating, frustrating. And I started to learn about this turning idea, turning away from all these little plans and designs and turning towards my higher power. And I started to practice it. And I got into some situations where I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know like the answers to something and I had to turn. I had no choice. And I started to notice that my mind would get more peaceful and these things didn't matter anymore. I don't want to make the baggers feel small. I don't want to have discord at the darn place that I go to like 16 times. I'm there all the time. It's hilarious. I'm really I don't know why. I end up at the grocery lot. So like I see these people more than I probably see a lot of people, right? And I want to have harmony. And I don't know what happened, but I just had this shift where I started to be present, and just care more about and consider and think about the other people. And I know it was because I kept going to God and I just kept saying, God, help me, show me who you want me to be, show me, and I just kept on doing that. And I stopped thinking about what Elizabeth thinks needs to happen, to save 4 more plastic bags from being in landfills. I mean, come on, and then a funny people go, well, what happened with that story? Sometimes, what happened was I had 2 more kids move out and I had less groceries to buy. And also, it just didn't matter, when they put the potato chips on the bottom, yeah, I get a little tense, tiny bit, but I just let it go. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's not important. I don't need to, I just remind myself, I'm like, okay, it's cool. But you know what? That doesn't happen. And I swear they've gotten better. I don't know if they've gotten better. I don't know what happened, but something happened. But sometimes, I have a friend that thinks we manifest this stuff, that we manifest the problems and the solutions in our lives. Now, I don't know how much I believe in that. Okay. But I've seen some stuff that's pretty amazing that when I turn to God and I say, okay, here I am. All right, cool. Um, cool stuff happens. Obstacles are removed. Like amazing things happen. I've been living hour to hour all through the day. I've been living hour to hour. And it blows my mind how people are showing up for me. Opportunities are coming my way. Like I was terrified. I'm living alone for the first time. I don't remember if I said any of this last week because that's how these weeks have been lately. But I'm living on my own for the first time in 33 years. And I was terrified that I was going to be lonely. I was terrified. I was abandoned as a child a lot. I was left alone a lot. I found out in 2022 that I was left alone at a really young age. And so when, I don't know where people are, like if you tell me you're going to be home at 6 and you don't come home till 8, I will start to panic. I will feel panic. You're dead somewhere. I'm sure you're dead and I'm not going to live. So if anyone has that kind of abandonment trauma, you know what this feels like. So I've been getting outside help, but also I just keep going to God. I'm like, God, and I'm doing some other outside 12-step stuff too now. But literally, I think it was last Saturday, I put it out there that I had room for another sponsee. Is anyone looking for one? And someone contacted me and we had our first meeting. This awesome woman from Ireland. The next hour, someone I really look up to, like Howard, another person said, "Can you lead my meeting today?" And I'd sort of secretly, like 5 years ago, thought, I wonder if he'd ever trust me to sub his meeting, you know? And he asked me. So that was amazing. You know, it was an amazing experience. We landed on a topic that I actually felt like I did a good job. That was nice. And then later that day, I ended up going to hear live music with friends that I didn't even know like would be there. You know, it was just all day. I get to make this choice to turn and ask God and not worry about like the 4 hours from now or the day from now or 3 weeks from now. And when I do that, I get to be present. I get to enjoy every moment. I get to look across and say, I just told Andy, he keeps showing up in my Facebook feed, people you may know. I'm like, what, you know, who's in our meeting right now? You know, I get to know who these people, you know, I get to know you all because I'm not over here. I don't have this whole track of my brain that's not even here. And for me, the only way to do that is to go to God. I can't decide I'm going to stop thinking about what I think is important to think about today. I have to go to God. And right now in this, you know, painful time of grief and transition for me, um, it's every hour. It's like, okay, you know, and it's a lot of meditation. It's a lot of checking in with my little inner child. Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna say that. And really and just asking God to be with me and show me what's next. Let me get back to this paragraph here. You know, and I think about that. It says we are careful to make no request for ourselves only. Um, oh, sorry, I want to go back to we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. I've been thinking about that a lot too. What that I sometimes don't know. I have to realize that I don't know how to solve some problems. I used to think I knew how to solve every problem by myself without asking for help. And I'm really grateful today. Like what's amazing, I think AA service really got me. Two things happened. One, I was a speaker seeker for a few meetings. And usually people like to be asked to speak, right? So it kind of removed my fear of calling people. So I just call people and say, hey, do you want to speak at this meeting? And, you know, if I heard them just even give a good share back, I'd think, oh, yeah, they sound like they'd be a good speaker. I'll just contact them. So I have like I just don't have any fear anymore of contacting people. And then the second thing that happened was I was in a position of responsibility in a home group, and I realized I knew the traditions on paper, but not always how to apply them in a good way. And so that made me learn, oh, I have a lot to learn. And now we have a whole world of people we can call. So that got me into more into the habit of saying, okay, I don't know how to do this. There was a little bit of pride because I want to do a good job for my group. I want people to feel like I'm doing a good job. You know, I want to know the right answer, if there is one, you know, and do that. So it really humbled me and got me to remember. And so just that practice I've now used that elsewhere. Like I'll more often stop and think, I could probably use help with this. I'm not really exactly sure how to do this. Maybe I should ask someone, you know, and that, I don't know if that's helpful or like a kind of eureka for anyone else, but it kind of was for me, you know, because I've always been so self-reliant. So, um, and I like it says we don't make a request for ourselves only, except if others will be helped. And I think about that part of the third step prayer when it says, take away our difficulties, that victory over them. Okay, I don't know without looking at the rest, but you know, that the example of us getting through that can help other people. You know, I really am. I try to be, I respect speakers that are transparent. I try to be transparent. You know, I'm not over here. I don't have all the answers. I'm not sitting on a mountaintop. I'm going through life. I'm trying to use these tools in my life, and I try to talk about how to do that. And I like when people talk about that and say, yes, I'm going through a hard time. Here's how I'm using the tools in my life. And I ask for help for that reason. You know, I really hope I don't drink. I mean, I don't want to drink, so I'm doing everything I can. Many of us have wasted a lot of time praying for our own selfish ends. Yeah. In Kentucky, we pray that the tornado doesn't hit our house. That's where I heard about God the most growing up, when we're in that zone of the country. Okay. Howard, I don't have a ton to say about the next paragraph. Is that okay?
Yeah, you can go to the next paragraph if you
All
like.
right. But I don't have like a whole lot to say. It seems like it would be better for someone that knows the history of why they put that in there. But I do have one story. Let me share. I could do something with this. Let me do it. Okay, so I'm going to read the
Sure.
second paragraph on page 87. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. Okay, no, sorry. That's a rich paragraph. Yeah, I had a rough afternoon. Okay. Um, you know, when my former partner got back from treatment, we did this and it was really cool. We made our own little check-in and our own little meditation. And that was a really little renaissance period for us. So I just think that's great. I hope somebody in here is doing that. I'd love to hear about that when it comes to that time. Um, my the next part reminds me of my dad's family. They had in their house around the stairwell, they had the stairwell was like in the middle of the upstairs. They had what do you call it? You know, the things that you kneel down on. They had the things that flip down like you have in church, so you can kneel down. And they all did prayers as a family, and I always thought that was really cool.
Pews? Is that what they call it? Pews?
No, that's the seats that you sit in.
Oh,
We'll find out. We'll look it up. And I like that memorize a few set prayers, which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. You know, I can get, prayers can get too rote also, or like even when I was doing the third step prayer today, it was like, I was kind of laughing in my mind about, all the these and thous, it's a little tough, but the idea of having some set prayers, sometimes I can have an intention. Anything that will keep me away from the alcoholic mind that wants to take me somewhere else, I can think things like, um, I'm going to be okay. God's got me, anything. But I have been praying a lot and just write different prayers every day. I've been writing every morning, like different ones. So but having a few set prayers, if that helps you to do that. So to remind me throughout the day. I know a woman who has like every time she picks her phone up, she thinks about God. I know some people have a rubber band around their wrist to remind them to think about God. Anything I can do to constantly remember like God is there and I can turn and I can get out of self at any moment, you know. um the helpful books part, I have a beautiful story about this. Okay, I love that, this expansion of this part of my life is the most important. I know how to be in self. Yeah, I do. And I came through the 80s and 90s when we were spending all our time reading self-help books and navel gazing and finding out more about who we were. Okay, literally I know I know. I got it. What I don't know is my relationship with God and how that can grow and how that can change and seeking. And I'm not a huge I don't pick up a book and read it. It's the last thing I want to do. I'll read my phone all day. I'll find stuff, should I get online books? Of course I should. Yeah, I do that faster. But I love book studies. I love the interaction. And one day I was sitting there doing something on my computer, and there's this group that hosts some Emmett Fox studies, a Sermon on the Mount study on Saturday. I know they host about 4 different Emmett Fox studies. And I thought, oh yeah, and those people are over at the Emmett Fox study. And I was like, that's too religious for me. I'm not going to want to do that. But there was a woman in that meeting that she had a voice like honey. It was a real soothing voice. And I thought, but I want to go hear her. I'll just pop in while I'm doing something else, So I went to the meeting. And one of the first things they shared has been such a huge piece of my recovery that I couldn't even believe it. It was the part of the Beatitudes that said, do not forswear thyself. In fact, swear not at all. And what that actually means, hold on, Linda. Okay. What that actually means is that I'm not supposed to ever say what I'm going to do in the future. Like, let's say we got to turn off unmuting. Linda's hitting her phone or something. Hold on. Here we go. I just turned it off. Linda, you're on your phone.
High cholesterol and weight gain.
Wait, she keeps unmuting herself. Is she co-hosted? Okay, sorry guys.
Sorry.
So anything that I pre-decide, you know, like I'm not going to be friends with Andy ever again. You know, I'm never going to talk to him because of this, that, and the other. Like that removes God's ability to work in my life. My higher power literally cannot come in and do anything. I've heard something said, you cannot fill a cup that's already full. But anyway, so I go to the study and they're talking about this and it's really great because they try to they are, you know, an AA group that's holding this. So they try to de-emphasize the religious part and say we really try to just talk about how this can help us in our 12-step recovery. They got a great little opening reading. I have a link to some stuff if anybody wants it too. And so really just learning that about, because I never heard much about using these tools all day. I heard like, what time of day do you do your 10 step? I'm like, you just never heard about it where I came up in AA. You know, my sponsor tried to tell me why this stuff was important all day. But since I was so busy still managing, I really didn't listen to her until I got into enough pain, you know, until I saw that it wasn't working for me to be in self-management. So to hear something like that, you know, do not forswear thyself. In fact, swear not at all. Because I don't know, let's say I have an upcoming decision and I'm not sure, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, I don't have to, I can wait until that day. When do you have to make the decision by? I don't have to make it right now. I don't even know what's going to happen. If I have something, we're on Monday and something's coming up on Thursday, I literally don't have to think about it until Thursday unless there's an action I need to take to prepare for something. If there's an actionable thing I can do today, then I do it. Otherwise, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to talk about it. All I have to do is on Thursday, I pray and ask God, what should I do? You know, maybe I want to collect a little information, and that's an actionable step is to collect information about something, right? But I don't need to stress about it. I don't need to worry, you know, because I don't know what God's going to have me do. You know, I have no idea. That I'm in God's hands now. I have given myself to my higher power, my will and my life. So I can't make pre-decisions. So I wouldn't have learned that had I not gone to that Emmett Fox study. So I'm just saying my I don't typically do things like, hey, Elizabeth, you should do this. This would be a good idea for your recovery. Usually it's either by accident or by necessity or because I get in so much pain that I go ahead and finally try something that somebody says, you know, or because someone invites me, which is always really nice. That happens. That's actually been happening to me a lot lately where people are inviting me to come to places because they know I'm going through a hard time. So that's been really nice. And I got to go to some things last night that I didn't even plan to go to. It was really nice. Let me see what else we got in here. And there you go. Let's be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they have to offer. Some of us come in here with prejudice. I really didn't have any. Have maybe a little bit. There's a family member of mine that kind of, I think she misuses what maybe was intended in kind of a hurtful way, but that's another ego deflating practice, isn't it? It's like to see where other people might be right. I heard somebody recently, I was at a meeting and they got really angry about not wanting to ever read the steps using the male pronoun and defending that. Now, my sponsor would have had a field day with that one, right? Because me respecting the literature, me respecting a meeting's practices, me having humility, this is where, you know, the traditions come in. I'm part of something bigger. And I respect I know someone who says that when she is called upon to read it in a meeting, she reads it as it is written, but privately she changes the pronouns to what she prefers. And I really like that because, you know, that's respecting the unity of the program and the conference that hasn't changed that, you know, and supporting that unity. And that's one of the most important things about the traditions. But sorry, I was talking about ego, deflating that ego and seeing where, yeah. So the literature is right, seeing where stuff is right. I was just using that as an example. And I think that's it for me tonight, Howard. Thank you. Again, do you want me to read the paragraphs again? Or is that later? That's later.
We'll do that later.
Okay.
Let me just end this.
Thank you guys for having me.